Greetings, my SYSBM gentlemen. How you guys doing? Once again, this is the Lord of SYSBM coming at you. Hope all is well with you fellas. So today I want to talk about preparing for the SYSBM lifestyle. Or I should say preparing for the true SYSBM lifestyle. And when I say the true SYSBM lifestyle, what I mean is that you basically eject yourself from the matrix, meaning you no longer live in the US or you spend the majority of your time in other countries. So, in order to do that, there obviously has to be some preparation on the back end. Now, the most important preparation that you're going to need to consider is money. There's no getting around it. Number one, you're going to need some funds, or in most cases, you want to have funds saved up to start this lifestyle. Now, I'm going to put an actual number to that, and I'm going to say it straight out $24,000. Yes, to start the SYSBM lifestyle, you should have at least $24,000. Now, in the US, $24,000 is kind of on the low end of salaries. But if you have 24K tax-free money sitting in the bank, that should support you for at least a year with a very comfortable lifestyle. Now, along with that money, of course, you should have some other business opportunities going, or at least have a plan that you're going to develop once you move to a set location. Now, of course, the two popular locations would be Latin America or South America or Asia. And for the SYSBM lifestyle or the digital nomad lifestyle, I would say those are probably the two best areas. I mean, there's many countries, obviously, in South America you could go to. The more popular ones would be Colombia, Brazil. There's also low cost places like Ecuador, Peru, some of the other places further south. Chile and Argentina may be a little bit more expensive, but nonetheless, they're a lot less costly than the US. Of course, in Asia, you have many countries to choose from: Thailand, you also have the Philippines, Malaysia, and other countries that are well suited. So, really, that depends on where you want to be. But for me right now, I'm kind of undecided. So I'm essentially traveling throughout the world, and at some point, I'll figure out where I want to kind of settle down at. I am learning Spanish. I have been learning Spanish for at least a year. So I'm obviously considering South America, but that's not in stone yet. So, number one, you want to have savings, at least a year's worth. Now, I give the number of 24K because that's around 2K a month, $2,000 a month, and that can pretty much sustain you for a year to live a very good lifestyle. Housing, most likely, or in these countries, are going to cost anywhere between 300 and 700 a month. That would give you a very comfortable place. Most likely, you'll have a swimming pool, security on the high end once you start getting over $500. Something else you want to consider is health care. Now, health care can be kind of expensive, but it depends on your deductible. So, if you only have 25K, if you have around 25K, then it's going to be it's going to be less likely that you're going to want to have a high deductible. So healthcare could probably cost you between $200 and $300 a month. And healthcare is very important. So that's one of those costs that you really can't skip out on. If you have substantially a lot more money, then you could probably take on a higher deductible. Basically, meaning if, let's say, for instance, if I'm paying $150 a month for healthcare, then I'll probably have a higher deductible. Let's just say 2,500 to 5K. Whereas if I'm paying $300 to $400 a month in healthcare, then I'll probably have a lower deductible, maybe $500 to $1,000. So that's something that you really want to consider. Some of us are young and we think we're healthy, but you never know, especially during a time like this. If you get sick, you definitely want to have health care. The one thing I also use is a mail forwarding service. That's relatively cheap. I think I pay around $25 a month. And essentially, any mail that I would get in the US basically goes to my mail forwarding service, and I can log in online and they will actually scan the mail so I can take a look at it. If it's something that I need, I can also have it forwarded to a specified location, be it local or international. So I have used it quite a bit. I've received lots of mail through my mail forwarding service. One time I actually got a big check in there that I didn't even know about, and if it wasn't for that service, that's something that just would have got tossed out. So something you really want to consider if you're going to be out of the country for a long period of time. VPN client is very important, especially when you are working with your banks. Many banks will lock out your account if you if they see that it's being accessed from another country. So you definitely want to look at a VPN client, and that's relatively cheap. You may pay like 99 bucks a year. Phone service. In another one of my videos, I mentioned that I use the Google Fi, which basically works all over the world. That's around 85 bucks a month. Food. I'm not really a big eater. I don't really eat a lot. I like to get a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. So for me, I don't really pay a lot per month for food, but depending on how much you eat and how you eat and the location, I would say at least 300, 300, possibly 400 a month if you're a hearty eater. Sometimes, depending on where you're at, you can get a nice meal for $4 or $5, and you can mix that in with cooking yourself. So eating out in foreign countries can be a lot less expensive than it is in the U.S. The one thing that you really want to consider um, when banking is you want to have multiple debit and credit cards, at least 5 to 6, and I'll tell you why. When you're out of the country, it's easy, or it's very likely that you can have issues with your credit cards or debit cards. They could be lost or stolen. They could be compromised. You have scams in different countries where you go to ATM, your card gets skimmed. Next thing you know, you have to call your bank, and they're going to cancel the card. So if that happens, you need to have backups. And that did happen to me in Indonesia, in Bali. I actually had two debit cards that were skimmed. Basically, I went to the same ATM, and somehow my cards got compromised. But because I had multiple backups, that wasn't an issue. So if you're going to be out of the country for a long period of time, you want to have multiple debit and credit cards. And I would say at a minimum, you want to have two debit cards and two credit cards at a minimum. But I actually suggest more, at least double that. I would say, honestly, maybe not even double, maybe three debit cards, three credit cards. And that really comes in handy because I've had issues a few times where I've lost cards or they were compromised, and I have plenty of backups. The other thing you want to do is you want to have what's called a virtual credit card, meaning that you don't have physical possession of it. And that's important because if all of your credit cards are lost or stolen, you can still do things like book hotels, book Airbnbs, book airplane flights. So you want to have a virtual card where you either memorize the number and the code or you have it saved up in a secure location in the cloud. I've set that up. I've had issues before with lost or stolen credit cards. So I made sure that I had backups. So the virtual credit card is an absolute must. Also, what you can do is attach it to or link it with Western Union and PayPal. So if you're in another country, your credit cards, debit cards get stolen or lost, you can actually wire yourself cash. The other thing that you absolutely want to do is lock your credit cards. If they're not being used, you want to keep them locked. Again, if they're stolen, somebody tries to go to an ATM or try to use it, they're not getting any money. So definitely on the debit and credit card side, you want to have multiple credit cards, you want to keep them locked, and you want to have a virtual credit card. Speaking of credit cards, before you even get to that point, you want to make sure that you have a high or as high as possible credit score. So please keep track of your credit. I have at least two high um, high limit credit cards. I have a Chase Sapphire and I have a Capital One. I use those for the travel benefits. I also use those when I'm booking hotels, Airbnbs, and you get really good points with those. Also, I have a high limit, so if for some reason I don't have cash on me, I can just swipe my card and I know I'm good. The other thing you want to do is any important data information you want to save in a secure location in the cloud. So you may want to have secure copies of your credit cards. You may want to have secure copies of your passports. You may want to have secure copies of any important medical information, any important financial information. For me, I save it in a secure location in the cloud. So if need access to it, I'll log in. It sends me a multi-factor authentication to my phone. I put in a number and I have access. Nobody else can get to that data without having my password and and my physical phone, which is always locked. So it's very secure. That's something you definitely want to think about. Now, when preparing for the SYSBM or the true SYSBM lifestyle, you're going to have to prepare to sacrifice. Now, when I say sacrifice, when you're in the States, there's things that you're going to have to give up if you want to leave the country and essentially be free. There are some things that can anchor you down and that are hard to release yourself from. Number one is a house. Now, when you have a house, some people consider it an asset, but it's really not an asset until you sell it. If you're preparing for this lifestyle, at some point you're going to need to sell that house. So you want to make sure if that's the case, you plan ahead. If you know that you're going to free yourself from the system in a year, then you need to start thinking about putting that house on the market, as soon as possible. Especially now with everything that's going on, there's going to be a lot of people who are anchored down to their home. Um, I would say if you know you're going to enter into this lifestyle, lease the place. You don't have to buy, lease or rent. Same thing goes with automobiles. For me, I knew a couple years ago that I was going to live this true SYSBM lifestyle. So instead of getting a new car, I leased one. When the time came, I turned in the lease. I have no more financial obligations, and I'm rid of the car. My house, I was fortunate that I put it on the market well before I was going to leave out of the matrix, and it was sold. The other thing you have to think about is your job. That is something that unless you can work remotely, but that's something you're going to have to give up. But that goes along with my first point, where you need to be liquid. You need to start saving now. Again, you want to have at least 1 year's living expense. That will give you time to figure out what it is you're going to do, strengthen your business, and most likely it's going to be some form of online business. Since you're in another country, that's probably going to be the most viable option, is to do something online, or maybe you're a day trader or you have investments. But again, your job, your current job, that's something that most likely you're not going to be able to keep when you leave. Relationships, most likely, if you're living that SYSBM lifestyle, if you have a girlfriend right now, or you know family, you're going to have to leave, and most likely they're not going to come with you. So you sacrifice personal relationships, you sacrifice relationship with friends, you sacrifice relationships with lovers, family, and that's something that you just have to be aware of. This SYSBM lifestyle truly is the lifestyle of a nomad, but with that comes freedom. So you just have to know that when you live this lifestyle, there are sacrifices. The other thing that you're going to have to give up are your worldly possessions. When I was in the US, I had a house, I had a car. Actually, I had multiple cars. Not only did I have the car that I was leased, I had other cars that were actually paid for. Um, I had to sell them. I had to, and they were nice cars. I had to get rid of the cars. I had a closet full of designer Versace clothes. I had to donate it. I had video games and PlayStation, the latest PlayStation, the Xbox, enough games to fill up a closet. I had to give it all away. I had tools, basically anything, DeWalt air compressors, just you name it. I either had to sell it or give it away. Anything that I possessed that I could not take with me, I had to give it away. Right now, the only possessions that I have is what can fit in two suitcases and a backpack. So prepare now to divest yourself of capitalism, consumer not capitalism, I'm sorry, consumerism. Prepare to divest yourself from consumerism, because many of those things you don't need, and you can't take them with you. So the video games, the cars, the clothes, at least some of the clothes, you can't bring with you. I mean, there's a limit for each suitcase, which is 50 pounds. When you get on the airplane, though, you're going to have to pay a little bit more. So you have to think about worldly possessions that you have. Most of them you can't take with you. So just be prepared to give that stuff up. And the biggest thing that you have to rid yourself of is fear. It is a big step to leave somewhere that you've known your entire life, to sell your house, to get rid of your apartment, to get rid of your car, to leave your job, to possibly not seeing friends that you've known for a long period of time, or family. You have to overcome that fear, and just know that when you step out, yes, those are sacrifices that you leave behind, but in return you gain your freedom. And that is the true SYSBM lifestyle. It comes with sacrifices, it comes with planning. I cannot emphasize enough on the money. You absolutely have to be prepared financially. I would not suggest that anyone try this without having some form of savings and a backup plan. And just to be, realistic, what happens if things don't go your way? What happens if it doesn't work? You need to plan for. You need to have a plan A, B, and C. But if you have the money, it will decrease the fear. For me, I knew that I needed to have a set amount of money before I left where I would be comfortable for a long period of time. So right now, I don't even have to think about working for years. I can take my time to figure it out. But that was planned a decade ago. This is something that you have to plan. So the true SYSBM lifestyle requires planning and it requires sacrifice. Well, that's all I have for today, gentlemen. This is Lord of SYSBM, and I am out.